Welcome back to the dopest show you won't get sick of. I'm Spencer, and this is my sidekick, Sasha. I spent most of my 20s in federal prison, but have been off heroin since April 9th, 2010. Got a lot of stories about the stupid stuff I did to get put in prison. I've also got a lot of stories about the crazy stuff that actually happened when I was in prison. And God forbid you end up in prison, don't have to make some of the same mistakes I made. At the end of this, I'm going to do a little announcement. Anybody who's from like the southwest corner of Virginia, like Grundy, that type area, got something, just watch at the end if you're from that area. But anyway, so this story was an interesting one. Two people I knew, two people I grew up with. One who I grew up with, like, from the time I was like second or third grade, I played rec league football with this fella. Now, it was an interesting time too, because I have a cousin. I actually lived with this cousin. I went to school, lived with his family, went to school down there when I lived with my aunt at Twin Valley, which is across Keene Mountain. That's actually where I first met Casey. We were just friends back then. Had no interest in me. I was a dealer. She was a goody-good track star with scholarship and all that. So, she didn't want nothing to do with me. I was a bad dude back then. Never would have guessed that we'd be together after not seeing each other for over a decade or talking to each other. That you would have blew both our minds with that. But anyway, my cousin had come up to my other cousin's house, and my grandma was living down there at the point, and I had to go pick him up. Only thing was, this particular day, I did not feel confident in my driving abilities. I am an addict, and I had plenty of stupid choices, but this was one day where I was very sped up, and I felt like it was not a wise decision for me to drive. So this whole process started out with the cluster screw up of me having to pay a guy who lived just down the street from me that I grew up with. That, as far as I know, he's still out there using. He's ton of terrible stuff. Talking about addiction making people bad. Lord, this dude's like beat up his dad, threatening him so his dad would give him money. And his dad actually called the one guy in this story, the one guy, not the frat boy, but the other dude who's the wolf. His dad called that guy and asked him, please let him borrow the money. I can't get money out of the bank till tomorrow. And that guy loaned his son money. Funny side story with that, just, man, I got bad on stuff, but beating up your own dad, it makes bad people worse, but there's some stuff that, there's some bad in you if you do some stuff like that. But anyway, just a side story. So I got him to drive me. Now, this is back when we're like, I guess I was like 17 around this time, something like that. Yeah, it had to have been. So, I mean, we hadn't had our license all that long. Oh, man, it was the biggest regret having him drive me down there of all people. He drove with his tire on the dotted line. So, like, it looked like, regardless of which lane he was in, like if he was in the left lane, it looked like I could reach out and touch some of the cars he was passing, because how he drove right in the center of the road with the tire on. Drove me crazy. I'm a stickler for driving, especially back then, whenever I was doing stuff I wasn't supposed to. I was an extreme stickler. I drove perfectly, and really big on that. For the most part, I was responsible in how I behaved with that, even though bad stuff. But anyway, also the people in the store, the person who drove me, like I said, it's been a lot of bad stuff with him. Another guy, a lot of bad stuff with him. He's wanted by the marshals right now. I'll talk about that later, but it doesn't end good, so keep that in mind. Now, we drove down, picked my cousin up. He rode back with us. So he's at my mom's house, hanging out over there, coming up to see us for a little bit. He's 4 or so years ahead of me, so I've got to hide certain aspects of what I'm doing. I can't let him know that I'm hustling and all this stuff. Not sure he wouldn't have told them. There's another times that stuff happened, but that was when stuff hit the fan and I had drug task force looking for me. That was when I was 14, when he told them about that. But not about that. I had some stuff on me. But anyway, we get back there and I get a phone call. And it's from this guy who I grew up with. I played football with him. Now, this guy was like, like that douchebag Stifler from American Pie. He is kind of like that type of person, I guess you'd say. he would make jokes at other people's expenses so then he could look cool by having people laugh at them. I was friends with him for that growing up, but at this point we went separate ways, and at this point I didn't put up with that type of thing. I didn't make fun of people. I didn't like being made fun. I don't like that whole type deal that some people do with each other. I don't do it. I don't like it done to me. Make fun of certain people. And I had a lot of self-confidence issues growing up and stuff like that. But anyway, get a call from him, and he's practically crying, and he is begging me to help him not only A, get his money back, but B, to protect him. So I'm like, what happens? And he tells me, my other friend, we'll just call him the Wolf, because he's the Wolf, and the guy who I'm talking, we'll call the other guy Frat Boy. I ain't gonna call him a poodle, but basically it's a pit bull versus a poodle. Structurally, if you saw them side by side, Frat Boy might have had a little bit of build on him compared to the Wolf at this time, but the Wolf was a wolf, and he came from a different life than the Frat Boy did. Okay, the Frat Boy too, he's a couple years ahead of me, like I said. So, yeah. So he called me, he crying, and he's not telling me the whole story at first. And then I end up having to find out the whole story. Now, there's a second person involved. The second person was somebody who regularly came to me that I had dealings with, that was under me in a chain of dealings that I had going on. He, along with the Frat Boy, had given money to the Wolf. And the Wolf was supposed to get them something, which he'd done once before. They had no reason to believe he wouldn't do it this time. And the Frat Boy ultimately, he's crying, saying, we grew up together, blah, 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 this, and that. And I'm thinking, yeah, we did grow up together, but now that I think about it, you were kind of a douchebag back then. He's acting like we were best friends and everything else. And I'm remembering a couple times that he's clowned on me and everything else. And he says, he says, I know, he says, I've heard that you're the person to call when somebody gets your money, and you call you quick, and you'll help get it back, and you take half and all this stuff. And that was what it was. I had this thing. I had a network of people that I put the feelers out there for, and I'd have a reward for them. First one to let me know where this person is, where I can go snatch them up. You're going to get a good reward. So holler at me. So I'd find people quick. Then we roll up, and that's what it was. And it wasn't even hard, because I didn't have to do most of the work. All I had to do was find the person and roll with them and be an extra person involved. When somebody rips off a couple people, those couple people are going to be mad. Basically, we roll up. Of course I help, but those people are going to be mad enough to do most of the work. Basically, it's, I don't want to say good cop, bad cop, because there ain't nothing but a cop involved in this type of thing. But basically, I'd sit with them in the back of the car and have them sit up front. That was always how I did things. And they'd be angry, and they'd be saying what they were going to do, everything else, and I'd calmly explain to them the situation. You've taken something that didn't belong to you in exchange for something you were supposed to give that you did not give. Let's solve this, the right way. Let's get this handled. And that's how it would work. It wasn't anything super crazy or elaborate. It was just element of surprise and outnumber and that type of deal. And he called me wanting me to do that. But see, I have an issue with that. The other guy who's involved is a good friend of mine. I think very, very highly of this person. Later on, and I was right to think highly of this person, as a homeless dealer and couch surfer, as good as it ever got with any money I ever had, and had a good handful at certain points. I never had my own place. I always wanted to buy an RV, because where I didn't have credit, and a large part of these stores I was underage, couldn't get a hotel here till you're 21, okay? Like, you have to have, be 21 to get a hotel in most places, except for the worst of the worst spots, which those places are known to have the cops run dogs by the doors, and I wasn't doing that. So I surfed couch to couch, but I always wanted an RV, because I felt like if I had a set of wheels with a home in it, I'd never worry about a place to sleep. That was a thing. I still want an RV, but anyway, the guy, the Wolf, he ended up let me live in his apartment for like over a year. He was in college and he had a roommate. The roommate still lived there, but he was in college. But the lease on the apartment was still going, whatever. He needed a place whenever he came back home. So when he was in college, he just let me live there. When he came back, my job was to keep a supply for him and keep the house clean. I kept the house immaculate whenever he was getting ready to come back. And I kept him right, which I know that's not right. It's terrible. Looking at it now, I see things for what they are. It's a bad setup for what I did. Everything about it was bad. But anyway, it's actually where I got my state charges while living in that apartment, where people were wiring me. But anyway, he's a good friend of mine is the point. For him to have me a setup like that where I didn't have to worry about where I was going to live, it meant a lot to me later, still does. That's something that always will mean something. But anyway, what I find out that the frat boy and his buddy, who his buddy usually comes to me to grab stuff, had went to the Wolf. Now the Wolf was going through somebody who was a friend of mine who was on the same level I was on. Me and the guy who the Wolf was going to both had the same network of people, the New Yorkers. The New Yorkers brought beasters back from Syracuse, and there was like a new, they just brought more back, and it looked better than it typically did. And the guy who's a friend of mine that gave it to the Wolf, it looked like they had something different. So rather than come to me like usual and find out that I had the same thing, he figured this was a better thing going on, so they went to him. And they put their money together, frat boy and the guy who I knew that came to me typically but went to them in this case. And the two of them gave their money to the Wolf. He was going to get it for him the next day. He didn't have it like that. But he was involved in all kinds of stuff. This, that. He always had all kinds of stuff going on, but he was known to fight. He was known to fight anybody. He'd fight security guards. He beat up one of our friend's dads that tried to bully him, get in his face. He would fight in a heartbeat, and he was known for it. And he's had a couple people scared and running for the, trying to dodge for a minute. So they give him the money, right? And he's going to get it for him. He had every intention of giving it to him. The same night that they gave him the money, the frat boy and the other guy go to this party. The Wolf's girlfriend is at this party. Now, the frat boy is a pretty boy that all kinds of girls like this guy, just straight up. He pulled girls. He pulled a lot of girls. He's a little douchebag, but he did pull a lot of girls. The Wolf's girlfriend was there, ended up hooking up with her. A lot of people saw it. They told the Wolf. The Wolf was like, not only are you not getting your money back, when I see you, it's going to be an issue. And I will see you. So, not only to get their money taken, but, he's got this guy that's got a reputation for fighting, looking after him. And I'm like, why would you do something so ignorant and stupid? You just gave this guy thousands of dollars of money, and you went and made out with his girlfriend before you received what was due to you. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. I know, I'm sorry. I'm like, listen, man, I said, I ain't nothing I can do. We grew up together, this and that, crying like crazy, been begging you. And I'm like, thinking, we did grow up together. We weren't ever best friends. We were friends, our parents were friends, but kind of clown on me, and you kind of clown on everybody that was younger. Like, since he was an older person than us, he's clowning on us like the old people that pick on the young people. That's just like hard to watch. He's one of them. And I let him know, listen, you made your bed on this one. You got to sleep in it. I said, I can't do anything to help you. You're hit on this one. And but there was the issue with the other guy that typically came to me and his money and everything else. And I did call the Wolf, and he was like, screw that, blah, blah. He's in a fury. And I said, listen, I understand that did happen, but the other guy, he didn't have nothing to do with that. He has more sense than that. And the other guy was more, hustler type person. He had more sense. I said, we need to do something about that. Can we work that out? So half the money ended up going to the wolf. Ended up getting that back from him. Half the money that they'd given him, the one guy's part, and I gave him half his money back for doing it. And that made that sort of right. He was still happy that he lost half of his money, and he was still unhappy that I took half of his money. It became an issue that he didn't let go for a minute about that. Coming to me every time, it's something that I heard about all the time, kept talking about all the time. I'm like, listen, be glad you got anything back. It's the best thing that possibly could have happened. Lucky Wolf looking try to come after you too, since you're just associated with him. Liable to get mad and get crazy and get stuff like that. Wolf was known to be a live wire. He'd in circles of people using it, get scary when people get intoxicated, how certain people get crazy. But anyway, yeah, so that was that. And Wolf's looking everywhere for this guy. He's mad at him. This guy made out with his girlfriend in front of everybody. It made him look like a clown. And people that I dealt with, just in general, it's like a rule. You don't mess with people's girl. It's just bad. Like, it's not a cool thing if you do that. That's not good. It's a bad look. It's not honorable. It's a bad thing to do. But the wolf kept looking for this guy everywhere, and he'd be seen places, and stuff like that. And eventually, it all came to a head. There's a store called the Country Store, and if anybody would like you're nerds for some of these, like seeing where things happen, I can show you a video of this place and where this happened. So it's a place called the Country Store. People call it the Cunt. It's that's the high school people's nickname for this gas station, short for country. But anyway, it's a cool little gas station. They got some home cooked food type stuff in there. Not a country area. I mean, it's city. Like, it's it's at a pretty big intersection and stuff. But it's a little bit off to the side. And the wolf lives like less than 1 minute from this store. Less than 1 minute from this store. Back before we had cars and stuff, he'd walk to this store. I don't know why you would be in the area of this guy knowing he's looking for you. So sometimes when the parking lot's full, there's a secondary parking lot that's lower. Like, there's like some rails, concrete, it drops off, there's a parking lot. So people will park there when it gets too crowded. So people are like wanting to get beer and stuff. It's like a Friday night or something. So his girlfriend is driving him. He ends up in that parking lot, and he sees that the wolf's there. So he hides in the back seat of the car, laying down, trying not to be seen, just laying there silent. His girlfriend's still inside, and I'm sure he was hoping to God, Sasha, girl, get balanced. And he was just hoping he'd pass on through, wouldn't notice he was there. So he's hiding in the back seat of that car, laying quiet, calm as he could be, and then swings open. Wolf's got a bat, cracking him, crack, made him cry, and Wolf isn't hearing none of it, cracking him, cracked this guy's legs up. That was about all he could hit, 'cause the guy was trying to scoot away from him, but cracked his legs up. Guy's girlfriend came out screaming, "Oh my God!" The wolf's telling her, "Shut up," and calling her name, saying he was vocal. I mean, vocal. He was somebody who he'd say stuff. There was one girl. There was a funny story later, but anyway, he ends up rolling out. Didn't get in trouble or anything, but that guy, I guarantee you, he didn't walk right for probably 2 months after that. Got a little fly there, but anyway. So that was pretty much the outcome of that. He found me, got me, and told him, and this isn't it. Anytime I see you, this is going to happen. And he gets out of there before he can get in trouble. Now, another story at the Country Store. He ended up splitting with that girl after this happened. And he saw her in the Country Store. And as I said, he was very vocal. This store is a popular place for kids to stop by, near some high schools and stuff, but it's not too far from a really rich neighborhood. It's got like millions, some up to $2, $3, $5 million houses. So there's a lot of, people in suits and stuff like that that stop at this store too. And it sounded like the store was packed. well-to-do people and stuff in the store at the time. And the wolf's girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, walked in, and he basically said, "People, this is important. I have an announcement to make. If anybody needs to get this hussy right here is the one to do it. She'll do it." And he went in talking about what a hoe she was. I'm not going to say it because I'm not going to be vulgar on here, but he said if anybody wanted a something, then she's the one. Humiliated her in front of everybody. I mean, there were kids, everybody that were talking about this for months after it happened. Yeah, he embarrassed her for that. She was wrong for that as much as him. I mean, just as much, It's your girl. I mean, she should have enough loyalty to you not to do that stuff. But to give somebody thousands of dollars of your money up front and then go out and disrespect them in like the worst, most major way that you could possibly do it. I mean, that's the worst thing you could do. I mean, seriously, that's the dumbest thing ever. Now, the the wolf right now, he is wanted on federal charges. He got caught with speed, drinking, with firearm. He's wanted, running right now. And last times my family's seen him, it sounds like he's not doing very well. It's very unfortunate. He had gotten clean, and I believe he was on the Mexican supplements. He'd gotten up to like 200 pounds of muscle, and he grew up a lot smaller than that. He's got like the same bone structure I got, smaller bones, but he was jacked. They say right at 405 on bench. It sounds like he just withered away with the drugs, and I mean, it's sad. I mean, talking about this, I know this was kind of a mean thing and everything that he did, but this guy was like a brother to me. What this guy did, let me live in that apartment when he was in college, living in Wilmington, North Carolina. That helped me in a major way. It was a rough time, not knowing where you're going to stay, this and that. And when he let me move in, it was right after rolled out of another spot, and I didn't know where I was going to go. And I mean, it was good of him. He also was known, and here's what's crazy: he would get people off of opiates. He'd talk people in, come on, and he'd get back onto. He'd be addicted to them. He'd talk people into detoxing with him, and he'd sit there with them. They'd use other stuff to help detox, but he'd get people off of it. I detoxed a good bit in that apart from methadone. A good bit. Finished off the last part somewhere else. I felt like I was a nuisance, like I was a burden. I didn't want to be there. And then when I saw him the next time, I ended up moving back in there. He's like, "Dude, why did you leave?" I was like, "Man, I don't want to burden you with this. I'm throwing up and I'm depressing and everything." "Dude, I've helped people with that before. What's wrong with you? Why didn't you stay?" And I'm like, "Man," and it just felt like a burden. You do enough for me, man. But anyway, it's sad that he's in the situation he's in. The other guy, the frat boy, from my understanding, he's like a manager at a coffee shop now. Got his life together. Doing good. Sounds like he's chilled out, got a family and everything. But back then, I mean, he was a man-ho, and he's a pretty boy. He always see him with a different girl every time. Yeah. The wolf, he pulled plenty of girls too, but I mean, he didn't go messing with other people's girls. I mean, that's a different story. You go around doing stuff like that. What do you expect to happen? I don't believe in that type of thing. Doing that. Now, unless the girl's with somebody that's a piece of trash, abusive, and stuff like that, then that's completely acceptable. That's pretty much Casey's story. She's pretty much in a wild, brainwashed situation, and she's telling me about it as friends. Had no intention of pulling anything on with somebody. And then when she and the guy broke up, she ended up coming to stay with me for a little bit, and then that's when, he'd left her. That's when we first got together, was when he'd left her. But there's a whole lot more to it than that. But anyway, if you like the video, press the like button. If not, it's 24 minutes and 29 seconds of your life in which you'll never get back. So I've talked about this douchebag named Sam. I've offered him some money if he accepts this little challenge. If he is able to beat me, give him $2,000. If he can't beat me, he don't gotta give me anything. I just would like to do this. So sign the paper. I'll bring this. No ones in here. Ain't no ones. All up and down. And can lose as many times over as much time as you want. As many times you want to come back and try. If you ever are capable of winning against me, Sam, you can have that. Or you can get this. Also, I don't have a whole lot of stuff. You know, I got a good little bit of savings, enough to watch out, Sasha. I got this the other day. Got a number of these. It's a silver bar. Yeah, money or silver, you can whoop me. Anyway, silver's a good investment right now. I first started buying those bars at $12 an ounce. They're 100-ounce bars. Bought them for $1,200 a piece. Bought a few of them at $1,200. It's worth about $2,500 now. It's doubled just in the past, couple of years. It's been as high as 50 some an ounce, and it's projected to go back up to that in the next 5 years. It's predicted it possibly could go up to as much as 100 an ounce. Solar panels use about an ounce of silver per panel. The electric cars are using a tremendous amount of silver, so basically it's being needed to be used in industrial type things. It's also used in the like synthesis to make like plastic tote boxes and stuff. It's used in that. I don't know the science behind it, but anyway, it's a great investment. You look at these investments like stock market and stuff like that. You're lucky to go up 10% on your total money, and even then it's a huge risk. Back to biblical days, silver and gold have had value, and it's something you can touch, something you can hold, something that's always going to have value. It might go up and down, but it's got value. So if you're going to invest in something, I put everything into it. There's a guy, I believe it's in Singapore, he's rented a storage unit that's capable of holding 2,000 tons. 2,000 tons. A ton's 2,000 pounds, so 2,000 times 2,000. And he's trying to store it in preparation for this spike in silver that's supposed to happen in the next 5 or so years. If he's got 2,000 tons and it goes from being in the 20s per ounce to over 100 ounce, he'll make quadruple his money. That's insane. And just figured I'd throw that suggestion out there for anybody who's looking to invest in anything. Look to buy it for just market value, whatever the scrap weight is. Don't pay additional money just because the scrap weight is its value. Okay, this gold chain, okay, I'm not going to talk about how much it's worth. I sound like a douchebag doing that. I got it for a very good price years ago when gold was a lot less. Even though it has value for craftsmanship, for how it's made, it's been crafted into something. That's got value that adds to it, which can make it be sold for retail. But if I wanted to just go sell this, it would be weighed and sold for its scrap weight. The actual retail of jewelry is typically triple scrap weight. So when you buy it, if you were to just scrap it out, it'd be worth a third of that. They'd give you a sixth of that. So you'd get about 15% back of your original investment if you were to scrap it out. And I'd say save this. Don't take it to a jewelry store, pawn shop, or none of that. For the love of God, look to sell it on eBay or something like that if you try to get your money back out of it. But I figured that'd be a little tip I'd share with you guys. It's something I believe in that I've been saving. Like I said, I don't have a tremendous amount of stuff, but I've saved up. I've got 4 of those bars and a good number of other silver stuff, smaller silver things that I've put my money into, and that's what I believe in. Also, you can't spend it. I can't spend a silver bar at a store. So when I buy this stuff like that silver bar, I can't spend it. You can spend this money, you can waste it at gas stations or anywhere just on petty stuff. But, it's just a random tip. But anyways, y'all have a good one.